All right, guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to go over Matthew chapter 2. And this is a really interesting chapter. Jesus has been born, and now word is starting to spread. And what's fascinating to me about this is some of the traces all the way back to Daniel in this chapter. So these Magi come, and we don't really know exactly where they come from, but there's a theory that I find really fascinating, and we can't be dogmatic about this, but I wanted to share it with you because I do find it just really compelling. And if it is true, it just shows how the lifeblood of prophecy and God's voice, it just echoes for hundreds and hundreds of years, and it almost burns in the heart of people, and it stands to last generations and generations. It really is a living and active word. So this word magi that come and look for Jesus, it means magician. And there's thoughts that these kings, these royal men, come from a land that's close to Babylon or Persia, Medo-Persia area. And it's the exact same word that's used in the book of Daniel to describe the magicians that Daniel was in charge of. And as you know, if you've read the book of Daniel, in chapter 9, Daniel gives a very articulate, detailed prophecy of when the birth of the Messiah is going to take place. And it's the 70 weeks of years, and it details down to the precise date when the Messiah is going to be born. So there is the idea that this prophecy in Daniel's teaching was so impactful in the land during the exile of Babylon that these are magicians who have been passing this teaching down through the generations. And even though there's been 400 years of silence, they have been tracing this, and they know, okay, the time has come. Now, of course, you have the star. Of course, you have all these other circumstances. So like I said, you can't be dogmatic about it, but I do find it quite fascinating that these magi come from the east, and there's not a lot that is told about them in the scriptures. They bring Jesus these three gifts: gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And what's also interesting is that they don't know exactly where Jesus is going to be born. They know when he's going to be born, but they don't know where he's going to be born. So it also tells me that they've received some information about Jesus. They know that he is going to be born, but like I said, they don't know with precision. And so they go to the place where the child was, and they stood over it after hearing the king, and they bring these three gifts, which to me symbolize kingship in the gold, priesthood in frankincense, and death, sacrifice, and suffering in the myrrh. Myrrh would be used to embalm. Frankincense was used in the priestly duties, and gold is just it's the gift of a king. And immediately after that, Joseph has another dream. It's his third dream that he's had, and the Lord appears to him, and it says, "Get up, take the child and his mother, and flee to Egypt, and remain there until I tell you, for Herod is going to search for the child to destroy him." So Joseph got up and took the child and his mother while it was still night, and left for Egypt. Again, you see immediate obedience and submission by Joseph. Really pulls his character into the story. And Matthew does something that I think the Jewish reader would have immediately recognized. They would have seen, oh, you're moving into Egypt. You have a flight to Egypt. You're seeking shelter in Egypt. I mean, this has Exodus story written all over it. And then the coming back out of Egypt after it's now safe, after God has provided what you need in order to keep you alive, essentially. I mean, that's why the Israelites went to Egypt in the first place, is because they were starving to death and they needed safety and shelter, and Egypt provided that. And so Herod slaughters all these babies, tries his best to eliminate the possibility of a king usurping his throne. And the Lord appears again to Joseph in a dream, the fourth dream in verse 19, and says, starting in verse 20 now, "Get up, take the child and his mother, and go into the land of Israel, for those who sought the child's life are dead." Immediate obedience. So Joseph got up, took the child and his mother, and came into the land of Israel. But he hears that there's another king reigning over Judea in place of Herod. And so he's afraid to go there. And after being warned by God in a dream, fifth dream now, he leaves for the regions of Galilee. And so he lives in this town called Nazareth, which fulfills what is the fifth prophecy, the fifth dream, and now the fifth prophecy in the book. He shall be called a Nazarene. So Matthew is just weaving together this picture that the Hebrew mind would have been piecing together in such a, I think, just a mind-blowing way. All this prophecy woven in, the pulling on the history of the flight to Egypt and return, the prophecies being fulfilled, the genealogy being proven. So it's like this systematic laying out of the truth about Jesus and the truth about humanity, that humanity is in need of a savior, that you have been sinful, that you've always been sinful, that you're currently sinful, not just inside the nation of Israel, but outside the nation of Israel, as we see here. And there's recognition of the Messiah first, not by his own people, but by these foreign kings that come and acknowledge him, bring gifts, and worship him. And this would be astounding for a Jewish mind to read these things about their very own Messiah. And so, don't overlook these truths about Matthew, because, the Bible was written for us, but really wasn't written to us. So understanding the original audience, understanding the historic context, it's not, you don't have to know all these things in order for the scriptures to speak to you, but it really will create depth to them, and it will create significance that wouldn't be there otherwise. So I hope that was helpful. Thanks for following along. If you watched Matthew chapter 1 and now you've watched Matthew chapter 2, you find this beneficial, please click the like and subscribe button. If there's anything you disagree with, I'm curious if you have any thoughts about the Magi potentially coming from Daniel's prophecy in Daniel chapter 9. And next video, we'll go into Matthew chapter 3. Thanks, guys. Take care.